You have 100% control.
Good evening, everyone. Maya Palacio here this evening. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm actually going to be welcomed and interviewing the Honorable Michael Dunkley, JPNP, who actually retired on March 31st. So he had 27 years in politics, and we're going to bring him in to have a very long discussion. So just a little bit of housekeeping rules as we start out this awesome conversation. My friend Amber, colleague, is going to be facilitating any questions from Instagram, so feel free to drop all your questions there as well. They will appear so we could get them on the screen throughout this entire conversation. Please feel free to also just join in and ask as many questions as you'd like, as this will be one of the very few last lives about Michael Dunkley's last times in politics right now. So thank you everyone for tapping in. We're going to bring in the Honorable Michael Dunkley to the screen for everyone to engage in this amazing discussion.
Good evening. How are you? It's great to be here.
Good evening. Good evening. It is indeed. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, I know we've been trying to get this set up, and I always want to have it immediately after you finished your final
Yes.
day, which was March 31st.
Yeah, it was Sunday. In fact, the 10 to midnight on Sunday, I was in a deep sleep, and I woke up and I said, "What?" I thought to myself, "Why did I wake up? Oh, I've got 10 minutes to be an MP. Anything I need to do?"
Did anything come to mind?
No. No, so I laid awake for 10, 11 minutes and went back to sleep. I just thought about all the time that I served, and then I just dozed off back to sleep again.
Yeah, because that was Easter Sunday as well.
Yeah, but strange because, once I go to bed, I never wake up at 12 o'clock. If I wake up at all, I wake up at, 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then I rise my normal time, like 5:30, but I never wake up that time. So it must have been, it's on my mind. My alarm clock told me you had 10 minutes left.
So you stayed up until the very end of it.
Well, might as well, just reflecting and reminiscing, and how grateful I am to all the people who supported me, and how humbled I am, for the feedback I've gotten since the announcement of March 15th.
Amazing. All right. So starting out with this conversation, I kind of want to play a game. So the game is called On a Scale of 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10. And everyone who's tapped in as well, please feel free to also join in. You can answer these questions down in the comments too, on a scale of 1 to 10. All right.
So one is bad and 10 is better.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Pretty much that way, but I'll make sure to
Yeah.
say it each time. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super positive answer and 1 being the super negative answer. Here are the ones that we have for you. So number 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the level of passion you had for politics when you first started your career, and has that rating changed over time?
It was 10 when I started. It was 10 when I finished.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how challenging was it for you to balance your personal life with your politics responsibilities?
I would say perhaps a 7, because in my life I've always tried to prepare myself as best I can. But obviously, when you get involved in politics, there in the beginning there's a lot of unknown, and then when you accept more responsibility, you have to juggle it. But being an organized person, and having good people around me, and having a strong family, I managed the challenge quite well. But it's still a challenge. But everyone loves challenges and opportunities in life.
All right. So this one, everyone in the audience, you can answer it too. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you believe social media had an influence in politics in Bermuda? 1 being the least, 10 being the most. Oh, you seem to have got you there. Unfortunately, I can't hear you anymore. So maybe issue there. I'm just gonna make myself settle for a second. All right, so while the Honorable Michael Dunkley is sorting that one out, again, the question, you guys can answer it in the comments as well, was on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you believe that social media had an influence in politics in Bermuda? 1 being the least influence, 10 being the most of an influence, especially, I guess, in the span of the last maybe 5 years. I see some comments coming in. Amber says these days, 8, social media wasn't social media, bring on the screen, social media wasn't what it is now back then, which is quite true. I remember talking to the former Premier as well, Alex Scott, and he was saying something about, I would never have put anything out there on social media about something that I have not done or have not accomplished. So that was something that he actually said there, which was quite interesting. Okay, I think we got Honorable Michael Dunkley back.
Yep. So repeat that question again, because I caught half of it.
No problem. Number 3, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you believe social media has influenced politics in Bermuda?
I think it's probably trending to the higher side now. So probably, you're probably getting above 50%. I would say six because social media is, in the terms of time, is still a relatively new, um, a platform to use. I remember, I think it was in 2007, I was the first politician on Twitter. Um, and that seems like a long time ago, but people are still getting into social media and starting to use it. And I think every day it increases because a lot of people get a lot of their information from social media. So, as a politician, you certainly cannot disregard it. And I've tried to be involved in, all the platforms as much as I can, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I use them all for different um, points of interest, and I treat them all slightly different because I think they can all be used differently.
All right. So it got some comments actually came in. So Amber did say these days an eight, and then better than you crew said maybe six. It's becoming more influential as
Yeah,
we go on. Yeah. So
yeah,
same answer that you gave. I would
yeah,
say,
but I think it will continue to rise.
you think?
Oh yeah, yeah, because the reach of social media is still gaining popularity, so it's definitely going to continue to rise.
I remember when I spoke to the former Premier Alex Scott, and he was saying how if he had social media these days, and when he was Premier, if social media was out, he said he would never have like put out there things that maybe he would be doing or are working on until it's actually done. What do you think about that statement?
I agree with that because when you tell people you're working on something, they expect it to happen tonight. And of course, in politics, you know, the time frame to do things is quite often difficult because you have to get consensus amongst the people you serve with, and then quite often it's a decision that has to go to Parliament. You got to get the support of Parliament. So yeah, I think you would be remiss if you're a politician and you would put something out there and commit to getting it done. Because people will hold it to you. They don't forget that, and social media's got a long memory.
Yeah, there's a couple of tweets that I have screenshotted and saved in my folder for people
Yeah,
like, "Oh, remember you said this? We're not there
yeah,
yet." All right,
yeah.
number four. On a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you about the future of Bermuda's economy? Everyone, you can answer that too in the comments. How optimistic are you about the future of Bermuda's economy?
Well, see, you're asking an optimistic person for my views. And as a proud Bermudian, I have my concerns about the views of the economy, but I still tend to lean on the optimistic side. I would put that as a six because while we have immense challenges, I have faith that as Bermudians, if we work with each other, listen to each other, we can solve our challenges. We've done it before. We've been out in the middle of this ocean ever since we were discovered, and we face severe challenges, and we can overcome the ones we face now. So I'd
Okay.
rather be optimistic than a pessimist who just complains all the time.
Well, for an optimistic person, I feel like six is kind of low on the scale. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you got to face reality. I mean, I just finished canvassing with Mr. King, and I've been hearing it from people for months now. We have serious challenges with the cost of living, with healthcare costs, our seniors, and things like that. So, we have real challenges that we've been talking about for a long time, but the people that we serve really haven't felt the measure of the impact of any changes we've made yet.
All right. Just pausing this conversation. I'm hearing that we're not actually live on Instagram yet. Just give me a second.
Okay.
All right. All right. I believe we should be good now. Everyone, apologies for that. For those who are just tapping into the conversation, again, I'm live with the Honorable Michael Dunkley as he has retired on March 31st from politics. All right. So continuing on with our questions right now that we're going into on a scale of 1 to 10, everyone still feel free to answer these ones as well as we continue on. So my next one for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the level of diversity and inclusion in the Bermuda political leadership?
And I assume political leadership, you're talking about, everyone involved, both parties. I, I think that we have great diversity, so I think it'd have to be at the high end of the scale, 9 or 10.
All right, awesome. Let's bring in some of the questions from the earlier statement there when it came to Bermuda's economy. Amber says, I would say a six. I don't think government listens to the younger generation who really the future will have an effect on the most. And then better than you crew responded and said, six is realistic. There's a lot of economic issues on island. I agree with a lot of those points. All right, so that's decent range of the six. Everyone here agrees to that. All
Hmm.
right, so my next question for you on a scale of 1 to 10, How much do you enjoy interacting with the public, as it has been like the most memorable experience of your political career?
10,
10.
10. the when I first got involved in politics, obviously you have to learn, you have to learn how to speak publicly, and you're somewhat nervous about building new relationships. But as somebody who got involved, and I've been around the community for some years, played football and cricket, and you know, I was very comfortable. I wanted to make sure that I developed as many relationships as I could, because I knew that if people were comfortable reaching out to me, then I could do a better job. So it's a 10 for me all day, all night.
All right. Scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction with being in the political career that you had?
Um, Probably an 8, because there's things you always want to contribute and get done, and you perhaps can't get done. And I'm not going to say that I did everything, because that I can name some things we still need to work on. But we accomplished a lot during my time in government, and certainly my time in opposition. I think we brought a lot of issues to the floor, and we helped to make some change. So an 8.
All right, cool. This one's kind of similar to it. Everyone feel free to drop this one in the comments too. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you believe you were at being the Premier of Bermuda?
Well, I don't want to give myself a grade on that, because um, you know I I hold myself to a high standard, but I did the best that I could, and I feel comfortable with the job that I did. And since I can't push the rewind button, I can't go back and revisit some of the things I could have done in a better way. But I gave it my all. I served with honesty and integrity, and so I'm comfortable with the job I did. And I think a lot of people respect me for the way I handled the job.
You don't want to give us a scale? You gave us a lot of explanations there. Might as well put a grade to that.
I grade myself very hard, right? So, it wouldn't. I certainly am not callous enough to think that I give myself a 10, but I would say a 7. Then, since you forced that on me, and I got to answer your questions. I've never done questions in politics. I'm not going to do them now.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Mr. Dunkley. All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you believe the people of Bermuda have trust for the current Premier, Honorable David Burt?
Wow, these questions are getting real tough right now, huh? From what I've heard, I think the trust has waned. I think when the PLP took power, obviously they were voted in, and people vote for a number of different reasons. But from what I've heard now, I think that trust meter for the honorable premier is less than 50%.
So you're going to say lower than 5 out of 10?
Oh, sure, yeah, 4.
4. All right. And I guess the last one for this portion of the game is on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you believe that the OBA will win in the next general election?
Well, I can't speak for all the voters. All I can do is speak for myself. Um, but having said that, what I will say is, in politics, there are a lot of swings and roundabouts. And while the OBA might not have a significant number of seats right now, only 5, because there's one up for a by-election in Smith's North. I think the OBA's got a reasonable chance to win. So I'd put it at 5 out of 10. The people have to speak. They make the decisions.
Reasonable chance to win, scoring at 5 out of 10, 50-50. So you think it's going to be just like equal playing field here for that win?
Well, all things being said and done, there's the potential for the OBA to create a major upset if they get down to work and do what they have to do. And I've said it over and over again, Maya, that you win and lose elections on the doorstep. And right now, where people have a great deal of concern about the future of Bermuda, the cost of living, education. I can go down the list. Somebody gets on the doorstep and builds that rapport and builds a level of trust. You can swing things very quickly, because the vast majority of people are just not happy with the direction we're going.
All right. Thank you for your honesty. All right, so let's get started with some personal questions. I know you've probably already been asked this question a numerous amount of times, but 27 years, you're deciding to retire from politics. So what was that deciding factor that was like, all right, I'm done?
I can't say there was one deciding factor, but it's a culmination of time, and just thinking about where you stand in life. And you know obviously I know that all things must come to an end, and to some extent you want to make sure that you can control the end of any situation you're in. And with politics, I had served for 27 years. You look around yourself in the House, and you see there are very few members that have served that long. And I just thought it was only fair to, my family and all the people that supported me through all of those years as, as I get older and, time not being promised to anybody that I moved on and gave other persons an opportunity to get involved. And so I gave the party plenty of notice. It wasn't something I decided in a month. I gave the party plenty of notice and I worked towards a date and I tried to work with the party as much as I could to, get a good candidate in a position to contest the seat and win it for the OBA. And so we put that plan in motion. So it's just the fact is that you can't stay around forever. There's no perfect time to exit politics. And I thought, okay, 27 years is long enough. I'm still in good health. I've got a family, and I've got two grandsons and another grandchild on the way. I need to spend some time doing other things in life, and it was a tough decision, but that's what it came down to. Nothing more than that. I still love politics. I love people. I got a lot to offer, and I'm not running away Bermuda. I'm here to help where I can as somebody with a lot of experience and still committed to the country.
All right. How long of a notice did you give before you stepped away?
I could not say specifically, but I could say that before the 2020 election, I was having thoughts about it because, obviously, when you're in the opposition, you really have no clue when an election is going to be called. That's up to the premier, and most premiers, they don't give their colleagues much of a notice about it. They just tell them canvas, 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 and get ready for an election. But before the 2020 election, I was thinking, okay, I've been around for some time. You got to think about moving on. You can't just leave the seat without a good candidate in there. So I'd been thinking about it. That didn't mean that I was going to step down. But, after that election, I thought, okay, I definitely don't want to do another election. And I don't want to be at the mercy of the next election. So let me find a reasonable time to step out and try to set the trail for somebody else to take over, knowing that I'll help wherever I can. So, it was probably 4 years ago that I started thinking about it. But I'm the type of person that I plan things. I don't do anything on a whim unless I have to make decisions quickly. But I try to plan my life. Because I believe you're more effective if you have a plan and you work your plan and you can deal with challenges when they come up. So, I didn't plan to get into politics one night before I made my intention known. And I certainly didn't get out of politics very quickly. I wanted to make sure there was as much of a seamless transition as you can have. And I know a lot of people would be disappointed with my retirement. And I wanted to make sure that I could ease any concerns they might have had moving forward. And I think I've accomplished that. So I feel relatively comfortable about that.
So in your statement just now, you said that I definitely didn't want to do another election. Why not?
Because then if look, I'd have no problem running in another election. Smith North's my family. But if you do an election, then it means you're not gonna retire 6 months after an election. I think that defeats the purpose of an election. If you're going to do an election, you certainly, in my view, you get involved to serve a significant period through that election period of 5 years. And so, knowing the next election has to be called by October of next year, that would mean that I'd be serving probably well into 27, 28,
Mm.
and that would just be too much time and taken away from my family and other interests I have. And it gets to be a point in time where 27 years is significant period. So you've got to make tough decisions. And being the person that I am in planning, I thought the process worked quite well. Um, you
Yeah,
know, uh,
27 years, man. That's my entire life. So
yeah, yeah, I know it. And
totally fair.
I've told many people before. I had a gentleman stop me on the street the other day, and he said, "Dunkley, what am I going to do?" And this guy's about 35 years old. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you're retiring from politics." I said, "Yeah." He said, "But I was 7 when you got involved in politics. You're the leading political figure in my life. So what am I going to do with you gone?" And I never thought of it that way. And I said to him, "Well, look, I really appreciate that. I'm blown away by that." He said, "But," I said, "life is about change and about the circle of life, and I'm not going to walk away and leave Bermuda. I'll help where I can, but I'm also going to make sure that I can get other people involved so we can have some solid leadership going forward. And but that comment really weighed on me. The amount of time I've been in this, all that guy knew. He said we learned it in school. So that really hit me right in the head, because 27 years flew. My time in politics, 27 years flew, because you're on the go all the time, and political issues never wane. They never stop.
Hmm. They never stop. Okay,
They
so
never
let's
stop.
let's talk about that political issues and things that went on. So undoubtedly, you probably had some intense scrutiny and probably a lot of pressure throughout the 27 years as well. So what would you say was one of the most challenging decisions that you actually had to make in your whole political career, whether it be when you're premier or not?
Oh, there's so many of them. I could name a couple, and then I'd miss out some, that I would think about later that I should have raised to you. But obviously, the decisions that you make when you're a cabinet minister, or when I was a premier, are obviously the most scrutinized, and some of the most difficult decisions. And we took over the country when the people want to change. It was clear, because you know the OBA, there were relatively few seats in the opposition at the time, and we gained a very slim majority, and people want to change, and we had to try to deliver that. So we turned the economy around, and put it in the right direction. But in doing that, there was difficult decisions that we had to make. One that comes to mind is the furlough days that the civil service agreed to take with, and I'm certainly so thankful that we got the unions to agree with that, in spite of how the unions want to try to rewrite history. Or let me put that another way. I like the phrase how it went is, we had the agreements of the union to do it, and we never had any intention of extending it on unless we could get agreement to do it. But that put government in a much better position with our finances, because we were really struggling at that time. And the interesting thing about politics is you have all difficult decisions. There are relatively few easy decisions to make, and there are no decisions to make that are not going to be scrutinized. And so every decision you make, you have to make sure that you thought it through and you do things in the most appropriate way. And we had those challenges all the way through, whether it became with hotel development, the airport development, with immigration reform. Those were always difficult decisions. And if you try to please everybody, you'll get logjam. You won't go anywhere. And we tried to get things done.
Let's talk about the airport decision and
Hmm.
that whole contract and everything that happened around that. Any regrets there?
Look, I reflect back all the time to the song "Regrets." I've had a few, and that's true in life. But as I say more and more frequently now, you can't in life you can't push a reset button, or sometimes you get a second chance. But I'm not coming back into politics. I'm certainly not coming back, as a premier of Bermuda. So I can't push the reset button there. But with the airport, I thought we took the best approach, and even the blue ribbon panels, that reviewed the project supported that type of approach. Unfortunately, the PLP, as the opposition of the day, did everything that they could to turn the table on what the project was really about. And I get satisfaction now in the airport for a number of reasons. One is that every time I travel through there, people thank us for what we did. And a number of times I have returned on a plane, and I stand up to get off the plane, and people are standing up to get off and waiting for the jetway to come out, and people say, thank God we got this new airport with a jetway, and this is a beautiful airport, and blah 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 blah. And one time a gentleman behind me even stood and turned around and said, yes, and one of the persons responsible for it is right here, the former Premier of Bermuda. And the plane clapped about that. And so I think it was the right thing to do. And the narrative about the airport and COVID, and we had to pay millions of dollars because of the deal, and that we've given it away to foreigners, that's a narrative that's false. Because if we as a government had tried to borrow the money to build the airport, first it would have been difficult to borrow. We would have got the money, but we would have had to borrow at significant interest rates. We had already borrowed out a lot of money. Secondly, is if we had gone to build the airport, the history of government building large projects is replete with failure of overruns and cost expense increases, right? And time delays, right? And so this way we took that out of the equation. However, when COVID took place, it didn't matter if you borrowed the money or if you had the relationship we had with Acon, you were still going to have ongoing costs for the airport, because if the government had borrowed money and somebody had built it and we were running the airport, we would have still had to pay for the staff while COVID was, upon us. We'd have to maintain the airport. We'd have to do all of that. And Maya, we would have had to pay the principal on the loan. We could have probably said, okay, we could have got some relief and not paid the principal, but we're kicking the can down the road, and we would have had to pay the interest. And
Mm.
I would hasten to say that I'd ask people to say that I'm wrong, and this second approach about borrowing money and building the airport would have been more expensive for Bermuda. So I stick by what we've done. We've got an airport that meets our needs, and even the Honorable Premier David Burt won't admit it, but overseas he admits it, because in the trade publication they put out when they went to Dubai, sung praises of our infrastructure, and in that was the airport. And when I read that, I almost choked, because here's a person who has been critical of the airport from the beginning, but will put it in a trade publication how good our airport is. So, I know that a lot of that was political talk, but I believe that we could have probably done a better communicating job about the airport, but we got the job done, and that facility is serving the country well.
All right, thank you for that response. I'm sure you left a lot of people with a lot of thoughts and me with a couple of questions to
Sure,
actually follow up
happy.
with. So
Yeah.
27 years is a long time. We're talking about that. Obviously, I think you would do it again. I don't think that's any doubt there. But
No, not a doubt.
what would you say to 1997 Dunkley going into politics about the lessons that you may have learned right now?
Um, I I would say to 1997 Dunkley, my brother, you need to have thick skin, because that's the thing that really bothered me in the beginning was, every comment you'd hear, every comment you'd read. Social media wasn't that key in 1997, but it was rising in popularity quickly at the turn of the century. It was, you see and you get thin skinned about it. But I learned to deal with those things better. If you get into politics, you have to certainly have some type of body armor on, because you can interpret things in a bad way. It can be tough on you to take. It can be tough on your family to accept. But at the same time, you need to listen to that comment and reply to it in the appropriate way. So, you know, you got to buckle up.
All right. Okay, let's move on to some current affairs that are going on right now in Bermuda, because this is what I found this morning. Someone sent it to me. I went on and I checked for myself. If everyone can see the screen there. Right now is a notice. So we're getting these cyber attacks in Bermuda, but please be
Mm.
advised that the voter register search was affected by the cyber attack. We are working to have this service restored as soon as possible. And then so on and so on. If you need to check something, you can call them. All right. So we're getting these attacks. We've also had many a times when, back and forth, Senator Dakota was going against Minister Owen Darrow just about these attacks. And I'll play a quick clip for you here that I also played on the Daily Hour.
As the senator will know, that there's been many statements made by this, and he will also know that there's an active investigation that is still current and active regarding these questions that the senator has asked. So I ask that Order 65, Standing Order 65-4F, that these matters secret be put in place in regards to these questions, Madam President, as to not hinder or interfere with any active investigation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister.
So that was a response basically about asking again for any more information that can be shared about this cyber attack. And then on February 11th, the Premier said that the matter was still under investigation and being supported by the Britain's National Crime Agency. And as of recent, the most recent report that was able to find for March 21st, the Minister, Owen Darrow, accused the Senator of grandstanding on the cyber attack, and also just glancing on the cyber attack and kind of going into detail more about like why he cannot share on the investigation seems to be the running comments that we're able to get. So my question to you, you've been in political game for 27 years. So have you witnessed anything quite similar to what's going on right now when it comes to cyber attacks in Bermuda? And if you're premier today, would you be doing anything differently in terms of, letting the people know what can be said, if something can be said?
Great question. So in 27 years, no, I haven't seen anything like this. Obviously, cyber attacks are relatively new. nasty phenomenon that people are grasping onto. And so, it's something that, I know the Bermuda government has been cognizant of for some time, and governments around the world have been cognizant, but, certainly the attacks have ramped up in recent time and unfortunately hit us hard here in Bermuda. So the couple of things I will say is that, first off, I have to congratulate my colleagues and certainly Senator DeCuto for asking the questions, because that's what we're supposed to do in the opposition. We have a responsibility to ask questions, and I think the people of Bermuda appreciate that. Now, Senator Darrell has taken the government position that he
Minister.
can answer. Yeah, Senator and Minister Darrell is taking the government position that I can't answer because it's under investigation. And yes, to some extent, that does hold some merit. However, the attack took place in September, and now we're a number of months moved on from there. And people do have a right to know. So there's two things that really still stick out to me today, as now we're in April. One is that people still don't know if their confidential information was breached. People still don't know if we paid a ransom to get any of our information back. People still don't know what happened to the current system and if it was destroyed intentionally by us or by the person who did the hack. All these questions, people have a right to know. It doesn't mean that you have to breach the details of an investigation. But when you looked at your 6 months on, people do have a right to know. And the longer it goes without people getting more information, which they have a right to, the more that they will start to feel very worried and trust the approach that we're taking. And so, to me, that's critical. Now, what I would have done differently is I certainly would have shared as much information as we could share going forward. Um, for the PR now to say, and these are my words, not what you put on the screen, but the voter base is down and because of the cyber attack. We've been hearing from the government of Bermuda that for some time now, most of the government systems were up and running, and this is the first we've heard about this challenge with the PR. And we probably wouldn't have heard about that if a by-election wasn't necessary. And that's clearly not acceptable, because if you've had a major attack like this, we should have seen clearly what systems are back in place, what systems aren't back in place, and what's the timeline to recuperating. Because 6 months on, we have a by-election now, and we have challenges in that regard are not acceptable. And if we continue to go down the road, it could put in jeopardy a general election, and that's not acceptable in any way. And perhaps the challenge that the PR is having, through probably no fault of her own, is certainly having the hesitancy of the by-election date being called, because after my resignation was made official on Sunday night, that by-election could have been called any day this week.
Just to
Because
confirm, I did not get I did not get this one from the PR. This is something I literally just screenshotted myself. Someone immediately sent it to me. So I was like, I went to go check, and I saw this when I went to see if I'm registered, which I am.
Right.
But yeah, and that's the response that it came from the elections.gov.bm website.
Yeah, and that goes against quite a lot of what the government's saying about how much we're covering, because there are more systems out of place than you hear about it. The more you dig into government work, the more you see you still have challenges. So I would hope that we can clear this one up and all of them up quickly. I would hope that government is more open about where we stand in this, because I know a lot of people are concerned, and they will be hesitant about giving information out, because if they feel it's not protected, their confidential information, they're not going to share accurate information, and that impacts the ability to govern. Governance is based on information, making decisions as you plan for the future, and I don't want that to be put in a difficult position.
Indeed. Now, just to follow up about why the minister actually accused the senator of grandstanding here, it's quite hard to read. I'll try to get it in, but basically the comments made by Owen Dow, this comes from the Royal Gazette. The comments made the comments made by Owen Dow came after Douglas Dakuto, the Shadow Minister of Finance, ahead whether a ransom had been paid in connection with the September 20 cyber attack. So Dakuto was asking this question. So Dakuto posed this question to the junior finance minister, Ariana Hudson, on Tuesday, but did not receive an answer. And that's when the minister did say that they have, quote, been very transparent in answering the questions many times. He said, he added, quite frankly, this has been another exercise of grandstanding and so on and so forth. But it closed by saying that Mr. Darrow said that the government could not answer the question due to security concerns. So that was the response.
Yeah, and I appreciate you putting that out there. Obviously, a government will quite often say an opposition's grandstanding because they're making a big deal about an issue, which is uncomfortable for them. But I go back to the point that people have a right to know. And when I've been talking to people, certainly they're asking the same questions. They're asking us in the opposition to get some of these answers out there. And we've spoken it about in the House, and we've spoken about it in the Senate. And I can tell you, I believe my colleagues will continue to push this matter because investigations do take a long time. And certainly I'm appreciative of the relationship we have with the UK to be able to gain some assistance from them in this critical investigation. But in the long run, you have a responsibility to tell people, even if an investigation is going on, because you can be somewhat diplomatic in what you can say to get the point across to people to satisfy their concerns. And I'm sure this government can communicate well enough to make that happen.
Well, I can also speak that this morning on the Daily Hour, there was a question that was posed about cyber attacks, and Teo Dio actually gave some really good insight just to clarify the fact that, cyber hacks, sure, they're relatively new, but they're not new in the grand scheme of, different countries being attacked by this. So Bermuda's not special in this case, but it is quite just alarming and something to keep eye of, especially now that we keep continuously hearing of other places in Bermuda, like, Bermuda College right now. I believe we spoke about Lindo's, and now we're looking at elections.gov.bm. And I guess the next posing questions, you answered it a little bit, but just about like, how would that actually affect a general election or by-election? Because like you said, once you retired on the 31st, I believe it is said that, I'm just going to look at it right here. Info says that voters of constituency 10, which Mr. Dunkley has held for OBA since 2012, will have 2 months from March 31st when you retired to select their next representative. So that's according to the Constitution Order of 1968. So
correct.
There's got to be either by-election or general election coming within the next 2 months.
That 2 months is the maximum for the by-election.
Maximum for the by-election, okay.
But there can be there's a minimum time too. It doesn't mean you have to wait 2 months. And one of the reasons why I decided to retire at the end of the month, because it was a clean break, but it also would allow a by-election to be held in a reasonable period and have a full number of members of Parliament in the House when we go back in May, as soon as possible.
So what is your thoughts?
Now it appears that we won't be able to do that, because if the by-election is not named this week, it's going to be pushed back until sometime in the middle of the May or late May.
You think so? So you feel pretty confident that there's going to be a by-election?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't until a by-election or a general election is called. I wouldn't rule out any premier weighing the options right up until they decide what to do. But, and I could debate either side. I could debate a by-election. I could debate a general election. But I think the way I'm reading the tea leaves right now is that the premier is looking at having a by-election.
And you think maybe sometime in the month of May?
Well, it has to be, because the Constitution gives you 60 days, and I retired effective March 31st, so they'd have to have it in, by the end of that month, May.
All right, so now let's move on to actually talking about the candidates. So before we get to C10, your section, I actually want to bring up some of the newer past candidates that we have. So Michael, I apologize, Malachi Simons, recently appointed for C15. I got to speak to him here live as well. We had quite the discussion. So overall opinions, now we know if we do go to a general election, he'll be competing against the deputy premier right now in that section that he has claimed for quite some time. So another stronghold there. But what do you think about Malachi Simons and the pick from the OBA to have him in to the party?
Well, obviously, that constituency is tough. It's a PLP stronghold. But one thing I've always said in politics that anyone who's interested in getting involved should never shy away from a battle. And certainly Malachi has shown that. He's been out there working. He's getting a reasonable reception as far as I know, and he's not afraid to take on the balance. You got to cut your teeth somewhere, and you have to give him credit for doing that. And I think that bodes well for Bermuda to get a young person involved who's not afraid to take on a tremendous challenge, because it's going to put him in a good position going forward, no matter what happens.
What do you think about his chances of actually winning that seat?
Well, I'm never going to count against somebody that puts a name forward and supports the One Bermuda Alliance. I think, go out and do the homework and see what happens. Look,
Okay,
relationship.
Let's rephrase that question.
Look, let's face it, it's a PLP seat.
Yeah, but what's going to be his major challenge other than it being a PLP seat?
His major challenge is to get on the doorstep and introduce himself to people, because if people don't know who you are, and a little bit about your character and what you stand for, you don't have a chance to getting their vote. They'll just go where they normally go or won't go at all. And so, any candidate has to get on the doorstep. We get enamored when we announce that we're going to run. The press wants to speak to us, and that's critical. I have always made sure that I have been available for the press at all times, night times, weekends, and everything like that. But I realized that the foundation of a politician in Bermuda is built on the doorstep. And you better get out there. They better get to know you, because not only do they know who you are, but there's a lot of people in your constituency that when they see you, you can dispel mistruths they might have about who you are and what you stand for. And so the greatest thing is to get out and knock on all the doors. It takes time, because it's one house at a time, but it's very rewarding.
Okay. Again, for anyone that's tapped in right now, feel free to drop any questions that you might have for the Honorable Michael Dunkley, as this is a conversation about his 27 years in politics. Any questions at all that you might ask about his career, maybe something that even relates to you, feel free to drop them in, or anything that we're talking about right now, which are the candidates that have recently come into play in politics. So my next one I want to discuss is actually Misha Fobler and Ben Smith for C8. So that by-election happened, and rightfully so, Ben Smith did beat out Michael Fobler. But my question to you is kind of just generally, with all your years and experience in politics, I guess what makes these two either different, or in terms of what are the positive attributes that they bring into politics individually?
I don't know Mr. Fobler well enough to actually say much about him at all. And I respect people. So unless I know them in a reasonable frame, I'm not going to make any comment on him. But I applaud him for wanting to get involved in politics, and I applaud anybody who wants to get involved. I just wish he had joined the OVA. But I've known Ben Smith a long time, and I know he's certainly connected in the community, and I believe he's somebody we need in the House of Assembly, because he's a very calm person. He listens to people, and if you look at the history of what he's done, he's worked with our youth. He's had great success as the swimming coach. Man, that's a great haul down in Carifta, isn't it? over 20 medals.
Yeah.
And fantastic. Just like they kept rolling in. They made me tired just listening to all the individuals getting the medals, and I want to congratulate every single one of them, because I know it's not easy. Swimming's got to be one of the hardest sports out there, because the only practice you can do is going up and down the pool and building your strength training, and quite often it's individual. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ben. I think that Ben brings a lot to the table, and I look forward to having his continued experience and ability in the House of Assembly.
All right. And I guess the next one up, as we have been told recently, last Thursday, that Lindsay Simmons will be in for constituency C10, which is your spot that's now going to be out for the by-election, going against Robert King. So you said earlier that you were actually out canvassing with Robert King. What do you have to say about this gentleman here? Because most people actually don't necessarily know them. When I introduced him on the show, The Daily Hour, a little bit of people did know him. So what can you tell us?
No, for sure. Yeah. Because he had worked in the civil service for a number of years. I've known of him for some time. I've known his family. And one of the things that I've said I always wanted to do when I stepped back from politics was make sure that I tried to find a good candidate to serve the people of Smiths North. And I think I found that in Robert. Before I retired, we had been out canvassing, not so much as him be the candidate, but he's working on my committee and helped me out on the doorstep. And so I got a flavor for how he handled himself. And, I was very comfortable in supporting him. And I think he will do a good job. He, in many instances, he's like me, he wants to be on the doorstep, and that's critically important. So he has my full support. I don't know much about Senator Simmons. I know where she works, and I know she's been involved in running a number of constituencies. And I guess the PLP is pleased that she's come forward. And the election will be won on the doorstep, and Mr. King knows he has my full support, and I'll be out there as much as I can. But I'm not going to be out there all the time, because I believe it's important that he learns to cut his teeth by himself at times. But I'll be there to help him and guide him. And I want the people to know, as Miss North and Bermuda, that while I'm stepping back, I'm still there to provide the support. After all, when you've learned so much and you gain so much wisdom and experience, it's a shame not to use it to help the Bermuda going forward. And that's what I'll do.
Yeah. So I wouldn't dare ask you anything about Lindsay Simmons. I know she's definitely on the other side. But what I can say about her, I know she was definitely the senator in the House that did speak up against Marcus Jones when he made those very degrading comments. But also, yes, I believe she does. I could be wrong, but I hope I'm right, because I know I've seen a lot of times at Rose's Cantina, and I know she works within there, and her and the community have done, like, when unfortunate accidents will happen where someone loses their life on the roads, they have stepped up to, like, kind of allowed money to be generated for the families by buying either a mocktail or a cocktail at times. So, and I've done that.
Roses has been a good community partner. And so we have to applaud that. I mean, we're a small community. We must all try to help where we can.
Definitely. All right. So moving on to my final questions for you. I don't want to keep it any longer, but again, anyone with any questions, please feel free to drop it in. But closing out.
But before we go
ahead.
You focused on a few, and I certainly, I want to say just two more things. One is, I think that the opposition leader, Jarian, is a person that Bermuda can trust and count on. And he's fully involved in trying to make a difference. And I think he's the type of person that we need to get involved in politics. He's approachable, he's a thinker, and he really loves Bermuda, like we all do. But if you take a look at the OBA, one of the reasons why I believe that we can make some great inroads and even win the election is because we do have some solid candidates that have come forward, and they have to win the election on the doorstep. I believe that Senator Dwayne Robinson, would fit into the House of Assembly really well and serve his constituents. He's been involved for a bit in the Senate. I think Doug Ducuto's shown where he can be counted on, and Robin Tucker's another one. So I think the party has a lot of good people involved, and I am aware that they will contest all 36 seats. So let's get ready to rumble.
Sorry, can you confirm that you have positions and persons who can fill every single seat? You have 36 people.
I've been informed that we can. So
okay. You already have them.
Well, they haven't been announced, so I would be premature if I said that we have all those seats there. But we have candidates to fill all those seats, and they'll be announced in due course. So it's up to Premier Burt to decide what he wants to do in the next couple of weeks. Have a by-election and put the election off down the road and see how things improve, or go for it all right now.
All right, we got a question that came in from the audience, so we'll get you to answer that here. Azari Thomas says, what does effective leadership in Bermuda look like, and what are the measures of success?
Very good question. Well, I think everyone will define leadership in their own way, but effective leadership in the political spectrum is, listening to people, even people who might have a differing view from you, because everyone is involved in the decisions. You need to hear what everyone has to say, but listening to people. Effective leadership in the political spectrum is being able to bring people together to move people forward. And your measure of success is basically how the community feels. I mean, all politicians can roll out a whole list of things that they might have contributed or helped contribute to get done in their tenure in politics. But the measure of success for leadership is the people that you serve in politics. How do they feel about their current position in life? So it always comes back to the people.
All right, thanks for that. All right, so closing out again, as I was saying, I just wanted to ask a question about with all your years in like noticing different changes and being told by the people like how they feel, as you just mentioned, what is a good thing that is currently happening with Bermuda's government and what is a bad thing that is happening, in your opinion?
Oh, the first thing that comes to my mind, a good thing is that the government's commitment to eliminating red tape, because Bermuda is a first-class international business jurisdiction. We've got a lot going for us there. But one of the things you hear from international business and also from Bermudians is there's too much red tape. So we have to eliminate that. And it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually do it. So let's hope it can be done. And I'm sure the opposition we be willing to work with the government to make it done. And I'm happy to give any ideas that the premier might want from me. What is something that's not going in the right direction for us? It's how Bermudians feel about the island at the present time, the cost of living, healthcare costs, and how seniors are feeling. I don't think in my lifetime I've ever felt this vibe about the concern people are having at the cost of living and their hope for the future. And that's something that needs to be right in the forefront of everything that politicians do.
Right. So I have a question also came in. It says, as you bid farewell to the political side right now, what legacy do you hope to actually leave behind?
Well, that would be up for the people to decide. But what I've hoped that I've left behind, from the front line of politics is that, people could always get in touch with me, that I acted with honesty and integrity. And as somebody told me when I was in the gas station the other day getting a coffee, I didn't know this gentleman. He come up and shook my hand, and you can tell when somebody wants to say something to you. He come up and shook my hand. He said, "I want to say thank you." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that, man." He says, "But I don't know what I'm going to do now." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, you were like my comfort blanket, because when we were in difficult positions or there were difficult subjects to be talked about, I could always count on you saying something that needed to be listened to. And so now that you're leaving, you're like my comfort blanket is gone." And I said, "Well, I'm very touched by that, but just remember, I'm leaving the front line, but I still support Bermuda going forward. So while your blanket might not be right there all the time, you can be assured that there'll be other people who can pick up that blanket and move forward." And so, I think the legacy that I would like to leave is Michael Dunkley did his best. He didn't always get everything right, but the guy worked hard for Bermuda and we made progress. And if that's what I leave behind, then I'm very comfortable and proud.
Amazing. All right, I got a question that came in from OKM Washington on Instagram. It says, as the world has become smaller through the creation of the internet and social media and globalization of companies, how do you think Bermuda can continue to stand out?
Well, I think we've got a reasonable foundation to stand out. Is the world's becoming smaller because of globalization, as you said. But however, the world's become more complicated and cutthroat. And what I've said in the House of Assembly a number of times is, that even our best friends will take our business. And when I say that, I talk about, our trading partners. Even they will take our business. So what we have to do is we need to, one, protect our reputation. Two, to make sure that we continue to be a place that when you mention Bermuda, those people involved in international business or tourism, whatever it might be, might say, you know what, that is a place to be. Because while those guys don't always get everything right, they care and they've got a structure and a system that can work for us. And three, we need to continue to promote who we are, because the rest of the world, while we can communicate and we can work with them on issues of the day, the rest of the world is also trying to cover their bills. And as I said earlier in this comment, they'll try to take the bread out of our basket. And when people know who we are, what we stand for, and how we do it, they will respect the way we do things, because Bermuda has a history of doing things the right way, not accepting business that is legitimate, and making sure we know our customer, and making sure that people feel at home and taken care of when they're here. Because, we have a great foundation we can build from in a more difficult and complicated world. What government needs to do is to allow that foundation to thrive, get out of the way, make government less complicated, and that's what the opposition leader was talking about, make it less complicated, simplify it down, and let business and people take care of stuff like that. And it's amazing, Maya. If you stimulate people and industry and you give them hope, watch it go. It will take off, and Bermuda and the government can be the recipient of a lot of good things, because when people have hope and confidence, it's just amazing what can take place. I've seen it. We've seen it. We need to get back to letting industry and people use their ingenuity and their ideas to get it. And people have confidence that Bermuda can do that. We just need to get the government out of the way and be there when we need it, but let it thrive.
So what would you say to the institution of Bermuda? Like, what are your opinions on Bermuda?
I think that it came at a very critical time when we were struggling because of airlift being diminished through COVID, and also I don't think we can forget the fact that our major hotels closed, so airlift didn't come back after COVID as we'd like to see it because of that, and so Bermuda Air came at a critical time. They had confidence in Bermuda, and they've become Bermuda Airline, and while it's difficult in the start for any startup like that, they've shown that they can do things the right way. And I'm pleased to see that the community is supporting them, and that bodes well for us.
And my question about something that's probably been talked about a lot, actually, I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen it everywhere, kind of comes across every so often, but 36 constituencies. Do we really need that big? Do we really need that number? Like, what's your opinion on that one?
No, I don't think we do. But those type of conversations have to be held in the broader framework of the voting reform. What we do right now is there has to be a boundaries conference, I think every 7 or 8 years, to make sure that the constituents we have are balanced within a plus or minus, so that every constituency, for example, be plus or minus 5% or 7% from 1,500 or something like that. But let's face it, we went from 40 to 36, and that was seen as a seismic shift. We went to single seats, but I do believe we could still be. I still believe we could be well served in the House Assembly if you lower the number of seats that you have, and you had a smaller cabinet. But we have to be very careful in doing that, because for a small place, our economy is much more sophisticated than other places our size, and we want to make sure that we take care of the business. But very few politicians are going to say, let's reduce the number of seats, because that means that some of them are on the chopping block. But any good politician will have confidence in their ability to get elected again, so that should balance it out as well. I don't want to start the discussion about the size of the House of Assembly now, because now is not the time to get in that discussion. We're too close to a general election, and we need to put all our attention to dealing with the problems of Bermuda going forward. But if the political parties want to put that in their platform, I think that would be something that people would look at.
All right. Thank you for the insight. Okay, now I kind of just want to throw some questions up to you that I've just been hearing forever. So now another
Sure.
one, signature schools. Let's weigh in on that one. I guess there's a lot of questions to be asked about it, but I guess the main one I want to pose to you right now is just the process right now that is being taken. I guess, lack of information that people feel like they have, how things are going about right now, and just the overall feeling of not really being in favor of this to a high extent. At least that's what I'm hearing from most parents and teachers, although government stats will say otherwise, that, students are either really enjoying it so far and so on and so forth. But like your overall opinion of just how the process is being laid out right now and how the general feel of the community is.
Well, I can't disagree with the sentiment you've expressed in asking me the question. I think the process has been, although the Minister of Education will say it differently, I think the process has been one where, people are somewhat uncomfortable with. We've seen the concern about the closure of some schools and the regrading of what you can be done. And just today when I was out canvassing, I was talking to a teacher who had just got home from school and worked in a middle school, and we asked about the signature schools, and she said precisely what I'm saying, is that it hasn't been well communicated about it, and she's skeptical if it's the right approach to take. And even a lot of those in the industry don't have enough information on what's happening, and so this is going to mean that we're going to be trying to play catch up to get it done right, and the time frame of making it happen is going to be a shifty one, and it could lead to the system not getting off to the start that it needs to be. And, out canvassing again, talk to somebody who's been involved in education back in the 80s and the 90s and saying, look, education's always been an issue. And here we are, many years later, still talking about it. And, the people who suffer are the people of Bermuda. So, we're making a significant change. It would behoove the government to get it right, because if they don't get it right, then we suffer, and certainly they're going to suffer as well.
All right. Now, another one I'm going to have for you here, just looking in the background, is about the Bermuda Taxi Owners and Operators Association as well. I'm reading off of their page right now, but basically they say Bermuda Taxi Owner Operations, this is coming from March 21st. In response to the recent House of Assembly announcement, Transportation Minister Wayne Furbett promised a mere 15% rate increase, but Ricky Tucker, VP of the association, declares this falls short by 5% to meet the basic living costs alone. Now, Tucker emphasized the struggle, quoting, "We're somewhat breaking even with the cost of living going up all the time. Taxi drivers are burdened with expenses like tires and maintenance and facing the same rising prices as everyone else, not to mention as well the potholes and everything in the roads, so there must be also a burden for them." But speaking about just the whole taxi owners operation, the amount of protests that there's been around the island as well, where do you fall on the lines of, doing what is being asked by the taxi owners operation, and I guess the government, quote unquote, doing what they can?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wasn't involved in any discussions around a rate increase. I do know that the rate increase took a lot longer than I think the taxi owners thought it would take. And, I think government's commitments had gone back some time, and it took a long time for that to happen. And so, I'm not surprised that when it came through that there was concern about the taxi owners from it. But, I think we're getting in a position again where the government is making some decisions in regards to transportation that are certainly a drastic impact to the people of Bermuda, and maybe they're not getting them right. To announce that there's going to be changes, and the ride share, I believe the minister called it on the last day of the House of Assembly, and the taxi owners hardly even knew what was going on there. So you're going to issue extra permits that are seasonable, and the fee to do it is a lot cheaper than anything on the table right now. For taxi drivers who have struggled through COVID, struggled with increasing costs and the inability to get some more revenue from it, this is like trying to put another nail in the coffin of hundreds of small business owners. And it's certainly, for the PLP to say they support labor and small business, this goes against the backdrop of what they say all the time. So, we have a major disconnect. And, when you look at it, we're heading into what we hope will be a successful season, where the cruise ships are coming. The transportation system is strained more than it will ever be, because, with thousands of cruise ship passengers coming in the dockyard, you need the minibuses to work, you need the taxis to work. If you don't have everyone rowing in the right direction, you set yourself up for disaster. And I think that it's not something that we want to do. And the other thing I'll say about the taxi industry is that I don't think many politicians have realized that, over time, as international business has become more prevalent and important in Bermuda, they have decided that they need to take care of their transportation means to serve their customers, to serve themselves, to be in the right place at the right time, to pick them up at the airport, to make sure they get the meetings and the receptions. And so they have used the taxi industry, and they've built relationships with some of these people that has basically taken some of those taxi owners off the street because they're working full time for international business. You need to recognize that and make sure you can fill those gaps, because the local customer has struggled. Now, I'm not being critical of the taxi industry in any way, but what I'm saying is the transportation system hasn't been looked at in the appropriate way. And now we're heading into a busy season. I hope we don't have challenges in taking care of our customer, because they pay a lot of money to travel. No matter where they travel in the world, it's not cheap nowadays. And we need to make sure that they have a good vibe when they leave Bermuda, because we want them to come back.
All right. And just an update for anyone tuning in right now, that yesterday did mark the implementation of the new taxi rate increase, but unfortunately not all meters are collaborated as of yet, and that came out a day ago from the Bermuda Taxi Owners and Operators as well. Okay, I had a question.
So you give an increase, but you can't make it happen? Now, come on, What do I need to say about that?
Very well said. Okay, another question coming in from @Wavy Jones says, what does the minister think? Well, retired Premier of Bermuda, Minister Honorable Michael Dunkley. Sorry. Okay, so what does the minister think Bermuda's lack on diversifying our economy as well as we continuously double down on tourism and reinsurance? So let me repeat that one more time. What does the minister think Bermuda's lack on diversifying our economy as we continuously double down on tourism and reinsurance?
That's a very good question. And, I don't think we're continually doubling down. I think we're building on a foundation that we have, and we shouldn't get away from that. But as I said earlier in my comments to you, Maya, is that government needs to set a foundation to allow business to flow, and then entrepreneurs, no matter what industry they're in, will come forward to make it happen. So, when the government talked about their national economic strategy, I didn't get into much of the detail. Why? Because that's their opinion on what to do. I had some concern. I didn't think that the vertical farming thing was reasonable. The farmers hadn't been consulted in the proper way, and the fish facility and things like that. But what I said about that is that, look, it's not up to government to say, here's what our economic plan is going to be. These are the industries. It's government to make sure that we have a foundation to make these things happen and provide the framework to happen. And in talking about the framework, I said that there were 5 critical areas that if we didn't get those accomplished, no economic strategy would work. And the first thing I said was the need for education, obviously. Second thing I talked about was the need for infrastructure. And that's obvious. Now we see the challenges with our roads. It's more obvious than ever. The third thing was, and these are not in any particular order, but the third thing was immigration reform, because if we're going to have new industries or growing industries in Bermuda, we're going to have Bermudians getting involved, but we'll have outside entrepreneurs putting money in Bermuda, and they'll have to get involved. So immigration. Fourth thing was to make sure we dealt with healthcare in the island, because healthcare is just way too expensive, and it's an expense not only for industry, but it's an expense that many Bermudians can't afford, especially seniors who are paying a lot of the burden themselves. And then the fifth thing, Maya, is leadership. Leadership has to understand when to get involved and when to get out of the way. And too many times as government, we're trying to tell entrepreneurs how to do things when they know how to get things done. We need to create an environment where we can let their hope, their vision flourish. And that's what we should do. Don't tell them how to do it. They came up with the ideas. If government thinks that they're the entrepreneurs, well, get out of being an elected politician and start your own business.
All right, thank you for being honest about that question. So my next one for you is legalizing cannabis. Is Michael Dunkley for that or against that for Bermuda?
Oh, that's a good question, and I thought that subject, wasn't going to be caught in my retirement. But here's my answer: is I don't support the use of cannabis unless it's for medical reasons or health reasons that are sufficient to warrant that. Because I've seen the side effects, the bad effects of cannabis and other drugs as well. So I want to be specific about that. But what I also don't support is the criminalization of people for small amounts of cannabis. I just think that is ridiculous. I know one of my constituents who, when they were younger, got caught with just a small amount of cannabis, and they still have to get special permission to travel to the United States. And now they're older than me. So that's not acceptable. I think that the criminalization is critical, and we need to get over it. And so, a lot of the legislation, if somebody wants to have a couple of plants that grow on themselves, that's fine. You smoke it in your own house, that's fine. But I've always been a champion for health. And look, I'm not perfect, but I try to exercise every day, because I know, your health is your wealth, and I want to live a longer period of time as I can. And I've seen, unfortunately, my father pass away when I was young, and he was young. And so I've tried to be healthy, and I've tried to live myself as healthy as I could, but I still let loose once in a while. But it's everything in moderation. And that's one of the big challenges I think that we face as a community, is too many of us have forgotten about the importance of moderation. If you live your life in moderation, you're going to be on a good track. And so, yes, the tough stance on cannabis, it doesn't work. But we need to understand that cannabis, like many other things, can have its downside, especially on the development of brains and young people, and the continued use of it. And we need to be understanding of that.
All right, thank you for your response to that. I will say, as I was just at actually a presentation on it recently here in Toronto, and I got to moderate, I did learn quite a bit just about the
Mm,
whole industry in itself. I'm not going to go into full detail in this
mm,
conversation, but the fact that there are many health benefits and you don't have to smoke it just to
yes.
consume it. And also, so
Well,
I guess my question would also be, would you be in favor of if it was legalized for medical purposes and not recreational?
no, see, look, let me be very clear that when we were the government, we moved forward with the medicinal use of cannabis type products. That was the start of it, because I knew the community at that time would be. You had to start somewhere, and if you went full blown, people would just go crazy about it. You know, we're generally a conservative community, and too often we complain about something when we don't know what it's about. I, you know, recreational cannabis, you know, that's going to be a way of the world in years to come, whether Michael Dunkley likes it or not, right? And so, you know, we got to respect the people around us. And, you know, I don't think we should be spending our resources chasing somebody just because they've had a busy week and they want to go home and have a spliff in their own house. I mean, we got bigger fish to fry. The world has changed. And while I don't like it, you know, I don't have any issues with somebody who wants to do it. But for the people that are with me, you know, around me, my family and friends, you know, I'll tell them what I think and they can make their own decisions.
All right. So we all know that, I feel like even in the years to come, you will still be around. I feel like even if there was the next general election or by-election, whatever it might be, you're going to be there on the day when everyone puts in their ballots, either talking to the community for a bit or not. But I feel like that's just your personality. You're going to want to be there to talk to the people wherever they are. So with that being said, and let's pretend that this is the last time that you are addressing the people of Bermuda. What's the last thing that you want them to hear from you?
You're tough. That's a good question. Um, the last thing they want me to hear, and you know what? I might say it now, but you know, if there's another last time, it might be different. So I hope you can accept that. If I never speak again in public, the last thing I want them to hear is that, you know, there've been some ups and downs. I gave it my best. I gave it. You know, I got involved because I love Bermuda. I will always love Bermuda. I will always believe in Bermuda. And in spite of the politics of back and forth, you know, I tried to stick to the straight and the narrow to make sure that the people of Bermuda were in a better position, no matter if they're black or white, rich or poor, support Somerset or St. George's. I did the best I can without fear or favor.
All right. I appreciate that greatly. Anything else you want to just add for the people who are tapped in, just to let them know, like maybe what you're going to be doing in the future or what 5 years from now looks like for you?
No, send me a tape of that so I can make sure I say that again if I have to. No, no. Um, you know what I'll be doing in the future. You know, I'll certainly help as much as I can. You know, I don't intend to be in the media all the time, you know, being critical or whatever, but I will support and I will speak when it's necessary because I think people will want to still hear what's going on in my mind. Now, I plan to spend more time with my family. I've never realized just what a joy grandchildren were until I had the first one and then the second one. And now, you know, I know I'm going to cry the day my daughter has her baby and my son-in-law have their baby at the end of this month. And I just want to be there to support them and enjoy some time with my wife and the rest of the family. I still have business interests, so I'll be involved in those. Although you know, trying to bring along the next generation. I take great pride in the Dunkley name, so I want to make sure that we continue to have our products out there to do what we can. And I'll try to stay active. You know, I've been very active all my life. You know, I mentioned I play football and cricket. I play a lot of squash. I still work out every day. So when I got involved in politics, I just won the club championship at Mid-Ocean Club in 1996. And I figured I could shoot par pretty much any day I wanted to play at that time. And now when I go down to play golf, I'm thinking about breaking 80. So I want to try to get my golf game back. That will give me some health and some competition. So you'll see me on the golf course more, but I'll still be there if people need me.
Amazing. Just got a comment here from Chris Cross Cat saying, thank you for your many years of service.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody who's thinking the same thing too. And Maya, I appreciate you. I followed you, your introduction to the public in what you've done in your media. And I think you've certainly created a nice little niche for yourself, and a lot of people listen to you and respect you, and keep it up. I like your approach. You're not afraid to ask questions, but you've got a pleasant personality, and you've got a lot to offer. And Bermuda needs good media. So good luck to you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Michael Dunkley. I appreciate that wholeheartedly. All right, everyone, we're going to say goodbye to Honorable Michael Dunkley and congratulate him on his retirement. 27 years. 27
Yes.
years. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here today.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being on the show in Bermuda. May we continue to be blessed, but let's work to make sure we stay blessed.
All right. All right, everyone. That was the Honorable Michael Dunkley. I did get some more comments coming in. This one's coming from One Destiny. It says, thank you, Premier Dunkley. You've been a great inspiration over the years as well. So that's another comment coming in. If anyone has any more comments, just throw them in. But you know how to reach them on Instagram and on Twitter to send them your feedback or your thoughts as well. Or even still, like he said, ask him continuous questions because he'll still be around. All right, everyone. I want to thank you all for tapping in, for being engaging, for asking questions, and also just for listening to a man who's given my entire lifetime to this island in the world of politics. So once again, everyone, thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening, and we'll see you again soon.
Of our work to reform the payroll tax structure, because it will introduce fairness into the system, fair to people who earn less, and because it will provide cash to those people and give them a break, a relief. Making Bermuda fair is fundamental of all of Bermuda. During the course of the day, the government delegation met deputy leader by election of members, votes of members. That conference will take place this summer, so anybody is free to challenge me as leader of the party, and I have agreed if I'm beaten at that challenge, then I will step down as premier when that party conference is held. So we will have votes for leader of the party and deputy leader of the party.
Is it your desire to remain Premier then?
Almost certainly.
Do you have 100% support?